this news of a free trade agreement between the UK and India comes after 3 years of negotiations, multiple missed deadlines. How significant is it now that it's finally here?
So, of course, Prime Minister Modi is currently visiting the UK. His intention behind the visit is really to sign the free trade agreement, which, as you mentioned, has been under negotiation for 3 years. The negotiations began in 2022 under the Conservative Party. And we saw a conclusion of the talks in May this year. So, for both countries, the free trade agreement is being touted as their largest and most significant trade deal. For the UK, it's the most tangible symbol of post-Brexit trade policy since the UK left the European Union in 2020. For India, it's a pretty big trade deal as well, even though India signed trade deals recently with the UAE, with Australia, with the EFTA bloc of European countries. These are much smaller deals compared to the one with the UK. The deal with the UK is also being seen as a sort of precursor of sorts to the larger EU-India FTA that is also currently under negotiation. But coming to some of the benefits of the deal for both India and the UK, for India, they include the complete elimination of tariffs on 99% of Indian exports, particularly Indian labor-intensive sectors such as textiles, clothing, etc., are likely to benefit from the reduced UK tariffs that currently stand, I believe, at about 10%. But these products have, traditionally faced stiff competition from countries such as Bangladesh, Vietnam, etc. So the FTA is also expected to contribute towards the wider Indian goal of increasing its goods exports. Coming to some benefits for the UK, we'll see Indian tariffs slashed on 90% of tariff lines, 85% of which will become tariff-free within a decade. But I think two of the key critical sectors that will see substantial Indian tariff reductions are the sector of alcohol and automobiles. So, for instance, on British whiskey, you'll see a decrease from 150% to 75% of tariffs, and then these will be further lowered to about 40% over the course of time. On British automobiles, for instance, you'll see tariffs lowered from around 110% to 10%. So these are two sectors where the UK had a desire to see a dramatic reduction of Indian tariffs. Overall, I would say that there is an estimation that the UK-India free trade agreement will lead to a doubling of bilateral trade from the current 42 billion pounds. But I would also add that the deal is beyond trade. There's also issues like migration that have remained a major sticking point in the negotiations. And the blueprint of the deal allows for easier mobility for Indian professionals working in certain sectors. But India was actually seeking greater professional visa quotas for its IT and healthcare sectors. It was seeking a more liberalized visa regime. So I think when it comes to this issue of migration, the result has been somewhat of a come down from New Delhi's previous demands. What has instead been agreed upon is a double contribution convention that exempts Indians temporarily posted in the UK for work from social security contributions for a period of 3 years. So the decision here is, the aim is to prevent employees from paying into multiple social security systems. And this will certainly save Indian employees, Indian companies of money, but it is still a come down from India's previous demands. But I'll add that this is really a sign of also greater flexibility on India's part when it comes to trade deals, a more willingness to make concessions on India's part.
And you mentioned some sticking points with previous trade agreements or negotiations with other countries. Agriculture, for example, has proven to be a particular sticking point with the US. Is there anything in particular that has been omitted from this agreement with the UK and India?
Well, I think one issue has always been India's, traditional reluctance to have chapters on things like labor rights, environmental standards, in trade agreements. India's had a traditional aversion to this, but the blueprint of the India-UK deal actually does involve chapters on this. Of course, you mentioned agriculture. these sensitive goods such as dairy products, cheese, etc., will still see tariffs remain in place. So we've not seen so much movement in that regard. The deal also does not really make a reference to legal services, and this has been a bit of an issue for our British counterparts. India has seen regulations that allow foreign firms to practice in India without a local partner, so we've seen a change here. But these regulations have come with caveats. Traditionally, India has been, reluctant to open up its services sector because this contributes to over 50% of the country's GDP. So India does fear foreign competition in these sectors. The UK deal also does not exempt India from the UK carbon border adjustment mechanism that is set to come into effect from, I believe, January 2027. The CBAM aims to levy taxes on carbon intensive imports such as iron, steel, fertilizers, etc., based on their carbon emissions. So I think going forward, we're likely to see talks continue on this major point of contention. India views views the CBAM as a sort of protectionist measure. Then you also have, the bilateral investment treaties that are still to be negotiated. India suspended some of its bilateral investment treaties in 2016, so there will need to be a new one negotiated with the UK here as well.
And despite these points of contention, Modi has described this agreement as India's first major free trade pact outside of Asia. What does this say about the broader relationship between the UK and India, and perhaps India's growing global clout?
Well, I would say that, India's traditionally been known for being a protectionist country. It's had this sort of reputation. But in recent times, India has been trying to shed some of this protectionist image. As a result, we've seen India sign a range of trade deals in a short span of time. India is trying to grow to be part of global supply and value chains, to better integrate itself into the global economy, to increase its exports. And I think there is a sense that in order to do all of this, it will also subsequently have to open itself up. India is also, I think, trying to capitalize on some of the shift, some of the momentum away from China, given the anxieties that several countries are today facing regarding China's economically coercive behavior. And I think this has certainly played a part in the India-UK strategic partnership as well. We saw the India-UK strategic partnership being upgraded to a comprehensive strategic partnership. We saw this roadmap to 2030 that was launched. I think it was during Prime Minister Boris Johnson's tenure, but with so many British prime ministers, it's kind of hard to keep track who did what, but I think it was during that tenure. So we've seen India and the UK expand their cooperation in a multitude of domains, from trade, of course, but also defense. We've seen the UK's pivot to the Indo-Pacific region that has again opened up opportunities for cooperation with India. We've seen the TSI, the Technology Security Initiative that the two countries launched last year. So we're seeing in general a broad deepening of the bilateral relationship, although I would say that there are certain irritants still to be overcome.
And of course, these changes in relationships, but also in status, come against a backdrop of global conflict. Given that Narendra Modi is expected to meet Prime Minister Keir Starmer in the UK as well, and they are expected to talk defence, where exactly does India stand on two of the most prominent and pressing global conflicts at the moment, on Russia, Ukraine, and on Israel, Gaza?
Well, if I can focus on the Russia-Ukraine war, right from the start, since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, we've seen divergences between India and the UK. The UK has been a key supporter of Ukraine. India, on the other hand, has taken a position of active neutrality based on its long-standing ties with Russia. But at the same time, India has also made clear that it does want peace while it maintains its close ties with Russia. So, in this sense, we've not not seen, these divergences be so much of a deal breaker in India-UK relations. On the contrary, I think engagements, interactions have expanded against this backdrop. There has been a willingness in UK, and I would say the same for countries within the European Union as well, to understand India's position, try and understand India's security compulsions, because it's not an easy geography that India operates in, with a nuclear-armed China-Pakistan axis at its borders. And I think the UK and European countries have tried to understand that in this context, for India, maintaining relations with Moscow is important to manage this complicated geography. At the same time, India is also trying to diversify away from Russia on defense, and the UK has emerged as an important partner here. Over the past decade, only 3% of India's defense acquisitions came from the UK, but now India is trying to indigenize its defense industry. It's trying to diversify its defense partners away from Russia, and the British defense sector is seen as key collaborator in this regard, when it comes to also supporting India's Make in India effort to indigenize defense production.
Much to monitor and to discuss in the coming weeks and months. Shari Malhotra of the Observer Research Foundation, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.